Hey everybody, it's Cecilia from Jilby Delivers, and today we are going to make one of our personal favorite family recipes. It's made it to the birthday list, which means it's really right up there at the top, and it's called Molten Chocolate Mousse Cups. It's absolutely delicious and so easy you can't believe it. One of the very best things about this recipe is that they need to freeze for at least 4 hours, but you can leave them in the freezer for up to 2 weeks. So you might have a party on a Saturday night, you can make them on a Wednesday and pop them in the oven just before the party. So it's really, really great. So this recipe calls for very few ingredients. We have got a stick and a half of butter, which is 3/4 of a cup of butter. We have got a cup of sugar, granulated sugar. We've got 6 large eggs and a little bit of salt. And then the majority of what's in here is actually chocolate. And this is 14 ounces of bittersweet chocolate that's been chopped. And bittersweet is usually 70% cocoa solids or above. And because there's very few ingredients in here, you really want the chocolate to shine. So you should definitely buy a high quality chocolate. You can use a brand like Guittard or a brand like Calabo or a brand like Scharfenberger, but just spend the money on the good chocolate because it does make a huge difference in the final product. So the other ingredient that you're really going to need for this recipe are ramekins. These are 6-ounce ramekins. You could also use 4-ounce ramekins. If you use 6-ounce ramekins, you're going to get about 8 servings. And if you use the 4-ounce, you're going to get about 12 servings. And you're going to serve these in the ramekins, so you want to make sure that they're in pretty good shape. So the first thing we're going to do for this recipe is we are going to take our chocolate, we're going to add our butter into the chocolate, and we're going to melt it. The best way to do this is with a double boiler, and we're just going to make a double boiler by taking our pan, putting water in it. We're going to bring this to a boil, and we'll put our bowl of chocolate over it, and then we'll stir. What we want to make sure is that the water doesn't touch the bottom of the pan. The other thing we want to make sure of is that no water gets into the chocolate. If you get water into the chocolate does something called seizing, and you get a really lumpy texture and you can't use it anymore. So now our water is coming to a boil. We'll take it down to a simmer so it's not too hot, and we're just going to put our butter and chocolate over it and just slowly let this melt, and we'll stir it. So now our chocolate and butter is almost all the way melted. We have a little bit left, and once it's done melting, we're going to set it aside and let it cool for about 10 minutes till it's not super hot. So we really have just our eggs, our sugar, and our salt to work with now, and I've separated 6 eggs. So I've got my egg whites and I've got my egg yolks. Just going to whisk these egg yolks for a few minutes and wait. We'll add the chocolate to these once the chocolate's a little cooler. Then we are going to take our egg whites and we're going to go ahead and start whisking them with a little sugar and a little salt. We are going to take our egg whites and put them into our stand mixer along with our whisk attachment. Then we're just going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and pop that in there. And we're going to let this whisk until they get a little bit frothy. So now once your egg whites are foamy like this, we're going to start adding our granulated sugar. And one thing is you want soft peaks to form here, but you don't want it to get too, you don't want to over whip your eggs, or else you get a little bit of a grainy texture. I'm going to turn this up and we'll start reining in our sugar. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mix our chocolate into our egg yolks, and we want to do it kind of slowly because the chocolate's warm and we don't want to do it too quickly. But the chocolate's been cooling about 10 minutes or so. We're just going to stir all this chocolate in. So now we have our chocolate, butter, and egg mixture. We've blended the melted chocolate and butter in with our egg yolks. And now we're going to take our egg whites and we're slowly going to fold them in. So we'll just start with a dollop. We're going to fold them in very gently. Don't use a whisk. You don't need to whisk it in. You want to keep as much air in these egg whites that were in it. Somebody gave me some great advice one time about folding, and that's that you bring the spatula towards you, go around the outside, and then give your bowl a 1/4 turn. Bring your spatula towards you, go around the bowl, and give yourself a quarter turn. So we folded in all of our egg whites, and you can see it's still a little streaky, but we're not going to worry about that. We really want it to have a nice fluffy texture. So we are going to stop here, and we're going to go ahead and put it into our ramekins. So now I've distributed the mixture between my 8 ramekins. I'm going to wrap each one individually, and then, like I said, I'm going to pop them in the freezer. They need to freeze at least 4 hours, but you can leave them in the freezer for up to 2 weeks. So this is our molten chocolate mousse cup. This has been frozen. I actually left them in the freezer overnight. And I've preheated my oven to 325 degrees. I'm going to take all 8 ramekins, take off the plastic wrap, put them on a rimmed baking sheet, and I'm going to bake them at 325 for probably 25 to 35 minutes, somewhere in that range. I want the top to have sort of a puffed look and be a little crackly, but still wet looking in the center. So now these have been in the oven about 32 minutes, and you can see that they're sort of cracked on the outside and looking a little dry on the outside, but the inside is still a little soft. These have cooled for about 10 minutes, and I've just put some powdered sugar over them, and these are ready to eat. They might sink a little in the middle, that's fine. And the texture you want when you put your spoon is just to really see this really luscious chocolate that's melted in the middle, and then it's very cake-like on the outside. Hope you enjoy it.